Group number 5 with Derk.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dirk and I will be presenting for Group 5. We did a research on the question, is neglecting sustainable? So can you neglect a building site in order to make it revive again? And we did this by doing a literature study on the broken window theory, which I will explain later. I will start with an introduction, then explain the methodologies, make a comparative analysis, draw conclusions on that, and then we will discuss to get an answer on our research question. We got our motivation from an island in Japan, which is called Hoshima. It was the highest density populated island to be ever recorded, but after the industry left from the island, it got neglected. And recently, tourism has picked up again and has renewed interest, and it's going to revive again. So that's how we got a motivation. Because neglecting as a strategy isn't something that's really being researched, we ran into the problem that there wasn't enough research to do a literature review. So we solved this by doing a literature review on the broken window theory, and we will make a connection between the broken window theory and neglecting as a strategy in our discussion. The broken window theory is stated by Wilson and Kelling in 1982, and it states that if disorder is happening in a neighborhood, this will lead to more disorder and even crime afterwards. This is stating actually that you would need supervision or policing in order to keep the neighborhood tidy. Neglecting as a strategy, as we saw it, is actually doing the opposite. It's seeing the possibility that you can revive a neighborhood without needing policies, and you can use the community's strength in order to revive the neighborhood again. So we did a literature review on the broken window policy, broken window theory. We collected 48 articles, and we divided them into 4 groups according to methodology. Each contained 10 articles, and then we made a comparative analysis of those conclusions. The first methodology is the literature review. They objectively analyze a certain topic. Literature reviews are often used in introductions, but it can also be used as a methodology on its own in order to see what the state of the art is on the topic. Longitudinal surveys are used to monitor the same subject over a longer period of time. This gives the researchers opportunity to incorporate lag effects on the subject. This is the contrary of cross-sectional surveys. Cross-sectional surveys study the same subject at a single point in time. This makes the survey a lot faster because you only need to do one survey. Makes it cheaper, and therefore often only cross-sectional surveys are done. And then our fourth methodology is experiments. Experiments test an hypothesis by carefully observing a piece of reality. This is especially useful for our broken window theory, since the theory is a hypothesis and it needs to be set into reality in order to be able to see if it's true. Gao and Pratt in 2010 stated that the broken window theory could only be researched doing longitudinal surveys, because according to them the theory is fundamentally longitudinal. But our literature review showed that this isn't true. The longitudinal aspects were less important than previously theorized, and therefore we can still say that our cross-sectional surveys and experiments are reliable. Our first result from the comparative analysis is that more research is needed on the broken window theory in order to be able to specify what aspects have on the broken window theory. The second result is that there is a relationship between disorder and crime. This means that the first definition of the broken window theory would be true. and this is only researched by the primary data structures, which is logical in a way. Then our third statement is that the perception of disorder is dependent on the neighborhood's characteristics. Sorry. This is only researched by the surveys, and this is also logical because in order to get a view of the perception of citizens, you need to do a survey. So we can conclude that the first broken window theory, as it was defined, is true. Disorder leads to more disorder and crime. Because this is true, researchers started to do more research on what else is true. They found that disorder also leads to fear, as you can see on the bottom left. What researchers don't know yet is what leads to this first disorder, and this is very important to know, because only then you can effectively handle it. And researchers name neighborhood characteristics as a problem, such as racial and social and ethnic structures, but this is still insufficiently researched. So, going back to neglecting as a strategy, we can conclude that neglecting might not be working, because when you have disorder, then you would only get a more neglected neighborhood. But if we would know what causes this first disorder, there might be a possibility to further define and maybe specify neighborhoods that are able to be neglected and do the policy. So, to answer the question finally, we can say that disordered neighborhoods tether, but the origin of disorder is unknown, and consequences of tethered neighborhoods are also unsure. So that was the last thing I would want to say in the previous slide, that there's also a possibility of a completely neglected neighborhood that's going to revive again, as we saw in our motivation in the beginning. Thank you very much.
Questions for Derk and about the broken window theory?
I have a
Just
question about the neglecting part, because in the motivation that the island was actually not inhabited by anyone anymore, so that's extreme neglecting. In fact, nobody lives there. But the research you did was actually in a neighborhood where people do live. So in a way, you should have maybe defined what you meant by neglecting, because the fact that people are still around, people are still living, might not be neglecting in a way, you know?
Yeah, I understand what you mean. That's why, there's of course different phases of neglecting, and what you described as when people are still living there, you see that fear comes around, which is of course impossible when the neighborhood is completely neglected. But this area of complete neglectance is still unresearched, so that's why we had to do a step back and only research on the neighborhoods where people still live.
was not a question.
So, just yes or no, would you think neglect is sustainable?
That's difficult to answer, only yes or no. I think if you go to our last slide, I don't have to say anything. No, it could be sustainable, but according to the broken window theory, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lots of questions.
In one of the last slides, you had those 4 phases under each other, and that the 2 middle phases were the broken window theory, but that you didn't know how it came to the disorder and how to revive the neighborhood again. If you say how to revive the neighborhood again, that isn't neglecting, right? That's the opposite of neglecting, because that's taking risks in again developing the.
Yeah, what we meant by that is that the revival would be by the community, so it wouldn't be a policy.
Okay.
then I just don't do my question. I do later on.
Thank you, Dirk.